好啦，喺呢個時候呢，我哋事不宜遲啦，即將呢開始邀請我哋今日第一位嘅嘉賓講者嚟到我哋台上面啦，同我哋分享一下㗎。咁佢就係啦，香港大學機械工程系嘅兼任助理教授許俊文博士。咁許博士呢將會同我哋分享嘅議題啦係 latest trends and challenges in the HVAC industry。不如將個時間呢交俾許博士同我哋分享啦。
So good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm very glad to be invited to participate in this very exciting symposium, which was proposed to be held in the previous year, but now we have another format of virtual event, which will be very exciting for every one of us. The topic I'm going to share with you in this afternoon is about latest trends and challenges in the HVAC industries. And I believe that it is very clever to select HVAC as the first topic to focus on for promoting energy efficiency or sustainable building. It is because the HVAC equipment and system actually is one of the most important part of the electricity consumption in most of the buildings in Hong Kong and around the world. And in my presentations, I'm going to highlight to you the important consideration for the current technologies and the future trends, and also some of the problems we are facing or challenges in our industry that we need to resolve in the coming futures. This is the overview about the agenda for my presentations, and I'm going to give an introduction at the very beginning, and then we'll highlight one by one the latest trends and current development in HVAC technologies to you, so that you can update yourself. And I can find out actually in the morning sections of this symposium, there are already many speakers mentioning about smart buildings and AI, artificial intelligence technology, and we will have more details actually later on in the other presentation by other speakers in the afternoon. And I would like to also highlight to you the major challenges that we need to overcome. And at this moment, we all know that the pandemic of COVID-19 is affecting every one of us. And I would also like to highlight how COVID-19 actually affect our HVAC design and operations before we draw the conclusions at the end. So first of all, HVAC would stand for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It is the biggest energy consumer in most of the buildings. In Hong Kong, as mentioned at the beginnings by our MD of the CLPE Solutions, Hong Kong, 90% of the electricity goes to buildings, and 60% go to lighting and air conditioning. And therefore, this is a biggest chance for us to try to cut down this consumption and control it in a more effective manner. For the whole world at this moment, actually there's a growing demand for cooling or air conditioning, especially in the developing country. It is because when the living standards in the developing countries is improving, there is more requests for better environments to live in, to work. So therefore, they are trying to install air conditioning systems, cooling equipment or heating equipment at their home and at their offices. So therefore, it gives rise to a growing demand. And this also gives us a lot of challenges. And this forms the basic background of the driving forces nowadays, which include energy costs, the money we need to pay every month for our electricities, and also the government regulations trying to cope with the climate change and carbon emissions. And therefore, as a professionals in the building industries, we are trying our best to create sustainable and environmentally friendly building. And HVAC systems happen to be the major contributors. And then we are trying to respond to this market demand, and also make use of the advancement in the technologies, which include some of the information technologies and communication technology in our systems. One of the documents I have studied before, which is the one of the report come out from the International Energy Agency. This diagram was taken from that report, which illustrates to us the world energy use for space cooling in the next few decades. And you can see that at this moment in in the year 2021. The percentage of space cooling in terms of the total energy use in our world is about 8%. But by the year 2050, it will increase by double to almost 14 to 15%. And this is also covering many of the different sectors, including residential building, commercial building, and so on. And there is a key evidence that we need to look at it if our aim is to try to control the greenhouse gas emissions from our building sectors. And in the HVAC industry, actually there are many developments and trends. I'm not going to cover all of them because of the time limitation. I have selected 3 major keywords here, which include new, smart, and green, to highlight to you what these trends is affecting the industry and also affecting every one of us. New here means new HVAC technologies in different parts and components and subsystems in our installations. Smart, which means the use of some advanced information technologies and devices for helping us in HVAC controls and operations. Green here refer mainly to the use of renewable energy sources for powering our HVAC equipment and also for supporting the improvement in the efficiency. And in recent years, in the past 1 or 2 years, the whole world is affected by the pandemic of COVID-19. So therefore, I would also like to highlight the relationship of ventilations, HVAC with this COVID-19 and what are the impact that it may have in the coming future. So let's start by looking at the first part, which is new. New HVAC technologies, here I summarize into 3 parts. The first part is the development and the use of zoning system, which means that in the past, there are many big buildings which have centralized plants for HVAC. Now there's a trend that these centralized systems with chiller plants is broken down into smaller systems which have a better part load controls and flexibilities. And it can also adapt to different situations. And people are also trying to reduce the use of materials. For example, the material put into setting up the air ducts. And therefore, more ductless system, like the variable refrigerant volume, VRF system, are being applied in different types of buildings nowadays than before. And there are also new development in terms of the inverter technologies applied in HVAC equipment. And this inverter technology actually is not new. It's already very commonly found in our household appliance, in our refrigerators, in our even in our coffee machine, or in many of the appliances that we can find, and especially in the air conditioning equipment. The inverter technologies is helping us to cut down quite a lot about the electricity consumption during the part load situations. And the second part of the new HVAC technology I would like to highlight is the heat pumps, and which have been mentioned at the beginning in the morning section and also by some of the speakers. And the use of the advanced heat pump technologies, including multi-stage cycle heat pumps, hybrid systems with the integration of solar and geothermal and chemical source energies, are being applied nowadays and developed by many manufacturers of these heat pump equipment. And at the same time, some of the research also goes into some innovative ideas about environmental refrigerants. And this, the use of new refrigerant actually is affecting our future developments and the system that we are going to adopt in our HVAC. So for instance, this is a diagram to compare centralized chiller plants with variable refrigerant flow systems, and especially during the part loads and in some of the buildings which have individual rooms and zones which require different operating hours. Then this zoning system or VRF system seems to be more flexible and more efficient in terms of the operations. And for heat pumps, we should already know about the use of heat pump for warming the house, for heating, but actually we can also apply heat pump to extract heat and also from water sources, from the ground and also integrate with the solar energies, which is a new directions for heat pump advancements in the coming futures. For the environmentally friendly refrigerants, at this moment, we already have international agenda of changing refrigerants into a more environmentally friendly chemicals and substances. And we are now still in the middle because refrigerants like HFC, HCFCs are being applied nowadays, but actually it's not the final destination for our refrigerant. We are trying to go for zero ozone depletions and also low global warming potential refrigerant in the next few decades, which will affect very much our industries in HVAC. And the second part of the latest trends can be summarized by this word smart, which have been mentioned many times in this symposium. And for HVAC systems, smart HVAC would mean the use of smart meters, sensors, and thermostats for us to monitor the conditions of our space and also identify problems that we need to pay attention to. At the same time, these sensors and the smart meter will also help us to carry out automations and data analysis in a more effective way. And at the same time, with the development of our communication technologies, for example, the 5G, the fifth generations of our communication are now being applied so that we can make use of IoT, which stands for Internet of Things, in many of the HVAC controls. And there is still a big potential for expanding this into self-regulations, remote access, and also integration with a lot of the other smart building control, like the lighting part that I mentioned earlier. And at the same time, after we collect all this data and information, we need also intelligence to make use of this to find out the wisdom out of it and identify the problem and also take immediate actions. So therefore, there is also a need for using these AI, artificial intelligence analytics in HVAC controls to try to increase the level of intelligence for supporting operation, maintenance, especially some predictive methods of maintenance are now becoming more and more common. And this is a diagram to illustrate how we put smart meters, thermostats, and sensors into different parts of our buildings. It could be a very simple air conditioning room with equipment and the diffusers, and then there will be a personalized controls by detecting actually the response of the individual occupants, so that the air conditioning system is responding to the individual comfort requirements of the occupants. And from the centralized system point of view, we can also link up these smart sensing technologies to be applied in our chiller plants, water pumps, and also individual air handling units, so that we can optimize the overall solutions in our operations. And by applying this Internet of Things, we can also enable a lot of HVAC control functions which are not possible or too costly to apply in the past, including predictive maintenance, air qualities, measurements, and also measurement and verifications of energy audit, energy saving plans, as well as real-time data monitoring, and so on. So this becomes much more easier than before with the support of these IoT technologies. And for the artificial intelligence, there are a lot of research nowadays being carried out and developed in the universities and also in different countries by the relevant companies who are supplying this type of control for HVACs. They are trying to implement this machine learning algorithm so that we can customize into different building behaviors for optimizing the operations for HVAC and for also maximizing the comfort and the indoor qualities of the environments. The third part of the latest trend I would like to highlight is related to sustainable or green. And for HVAC system, which consume a significant part of the electricity, we need to provide green power to them. And there is a trend and also research development to try to look into possibility of using solar energy as one of the options for electricity supplies and for energy supplies. And the use of solar photovoltaics, PV, is a very simple applications which can be applied in many types of small to large scale HVAC systems. And the use of solar thermal combined with absorption cycle, which also help us to create very efficient HVAC systems. And at the same time, we could also consider other forms of renewables, including geothermals. Therefore, geothermal heating, geothermal cooling system are available in the market and need to be expanded in order to enhance the efficiency. And the last on the list of this green alternative is the use of desiccant enhanced evaporative cooling system, which are more effective usually in some drier climate. So these are some of the examples of solar PV, which you can install on the top of your building, on the rooftop, and then connect it and then provide the basic electricity supplies to your air conditioning or some other household appliance. And at the same time, we can also consider the use of solar collectors or solar thermal systems to be applied in the refrigerant cycle to provide cooling and also a little bit of heating for the buildings. And in some other countries, and also in Hong Kong, we have examples of geothermal system being applied for heating and cooling. One of the examples I remember in Hong Kong is the Hong Kong Wetland Park. They apply it in one of their building, and then make use of it to provide comfort condition both in the summertime and the winter time, which are very energy efficient. And at the same time, some people are considering the use of desiccant enhanced evaporative, which is a new technology now being researched and studies, which make use of the chemical desiccant to absorb the moisture from the air. And in Hong Kong, in particular, we are in the hot and humid climate. So therefore, actually, most of the air conditioning cooling energy is spent in removing the moisture instead of controlling the temperature. So therefore, this evaporative desiccant-based system will be very attraction to our hot and humid climate countries. But at the same time, although we have a lot of potential in the trends, we are also facing challenges in our industries. Because every year or every month, the building owners is asking the engineers and the building professionals to improve the energy efficiency. And then next year, there will be another target. So therefore, we need to upgrade ourselves and also have a continuous, sustainable improvement in the efficiency level. And at the same time, there is a bigger and bigger demand for green building or sustainable building. And HVAC form the basic, very important part of these credits for green buildings. And in recent years, in particular, with the situation of COVID-19 pandemic, there is also a quest for healthier building because we would like to provide better ventilations, improve the indoor air qualities of the environment so that we can ensure that the people will not get infected in the air conditioning space. And another major challenge, which is becoming more and more obvious, is about control of carbon emissions. The term decarbonization come up in recent years, and in late 2020, there's also a report coming out in Hong Kong which set up a target for Hong Kong to be carbon neutral by the year 2050. Which is a very ambitious goal for our societies. And in order to achieve that goal, I believe that a building sector and also the HVAC sector is a major part that we need to look at to reduce the carbon emissions and also the use of more efficient and also more holistic apply of energy system HVAC. For example, promotion of district cooling system, which is found to be much more efficient than individual buildings cooling systems have been applied in some parts of Hong Kong and should be enhanced. And another one on the list is the development of smart grid, which is very relevant to companies like COP because the power company is the one who is managing the grid. And if we have a smarter, intelligent grid, actually we can make use of this grid to combine with the renewables, and also to have a better balance and effective use of our electricity resources for our societies. And this diagram is taken from the report which came up in December 2020. We set up the route and the roadmap for Hong Kong, how to get into carbon neutral or zero carbon by the year 2050. And you can see that we have to consider quite a number of different measures, including energy efficiency and also green energies, and also carbon trading as well in the solutions. And finally, I would like to highlight very briefly about how COVID-19 is impacting our HVAC industry. First of all, we need to understand that now we are in a position to transit into a new normal by having social distancing and remote work to become more and more common in many organizations, including our own university is now practicing this. And for HVAC system, there is also a need for putting more emphasis on safety precautions because there are some incidents, for example, in Hong Kong in the past few months, which is connected to ventilations in Chinese restaurants or in public housing essays, and also in different type of places. Therefore, we need to enhance the level of IAQ, indoor air qualities, in these spaces. And there is also some discussion about enhancing the supply of fresh air into different commercial space in Hong Kong nowadays. And obviously, there is a need also for us to do more cleaning, disinfection using new technologies. And if possible, we can also make use of AI and IoT system to collect the data and then to report the IAQ conditions of different space to the occupants and the visitors. For the building owners and the facility managers who is taking care of the operation and maintenance of the building, HVAC is also a very important task for them, and they need to deal with low variations. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic situations, there are restrictions about gathering. So therefore, our economy actually is going down. So therefore, many of the buildings are not fully utilized nowadays, which means that the HVAC equipment and plant is not at the peak low conditions. And in order to optimize the efficiency in such varying low condition, there's also a need for us to look at some strategies for better operation and maintenance by using AI and also other smart HVAC technologies. And there's also a need to protect the workers from getting into some dangerous situation when the workers is trying to visit some of the building which is suspected to be infected. Therefore, some remote technologies for operation and maintenance, and also for inspections and troubleshooting are also being proposed nowadays. But the most important thing about controlling the HVAC and ventilation for preventing the transmission of COVID-19, for example, is the understanding of the basic principles. And on this diagram, we can see that the most important transmission methods for this type of infectious disease is by close contact and by the droplets. So therefore, we need to look at this more carefully. And at the same time, in situations where there is also a risk of airborne or aerosol transmission, then we need to also look at controlling this the risk level so that we can minimize this airborne or aerosol transmission in our ventilation systems. And this needs careful techniques in the analysis. So in summary, the COVID-19 prevention strategies in HVAC include maybe simply term is in enhancing the air change. But this is not the only solution. We have to also look at outdoor air intakes and the exhaust part, and also air filtrations and other technologies which we can take into in our air distribution system for controlling and killing the barriers. And in conclusions, in my presentation, I highlight that the HVAC and cooling demand in the world is growing very fast, and it will continue in the next few years. The latest trends of HVAC industry include these three words: new, smart, and green. And the major challenges are related to system and energy efficiency improvement, and also the need for sustainable and healthy building. And I believe that there's a need for us to set up a strategic planning and have a right business mindset in order to tackle with these situations. And we should also get other people involved by educating and advice, giving proper advice to the client and the building owner to make a better decisions on their HVAC systems and decarbonization goals. So this is what I would like to highlight at the beginning. I hope that this will be a starting point for our discussions. So I welcome any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Sam Hui。好啦，喺呢個時候咧，我哋咧亦都接住落嚟進入我哋嘅問答環節啦。但係啦，我哋開始解答我哋線上每一位參加者你哋嘅問題之前啦，都提一提大家，其實你哋咧可以點擊熒光幕，係熒光幕嘅右上角問號嘅圖標啦，之後喺嗰度選擇 Start Chat。之後打低你嘅問題啦，就可以直接發送俾大會，就會由我啦代大家去向許博士啦去請教噶啦。嗱，但係其實咧，我哋頭先剛才啦就住許博士分享啦，我哋都有啲問題啦，現場線上嘅朋友都想請教㗎。咁啊，中英都有喺度啦。咁不如首先第一題先啦。So for Dr. Sam Hui, we receive a question from the audience that is there any specific trends that you see might change the existing HVAC business model? Like zoning that you have mentioned, can you will it be a game changer? Can you share us like what's your thought on that?
Certainly, I think by subdividing our building spaces into different zones, we have a better way of controlling the airflow and also meeting the requirements for different types of users. And in the case of the current practices, actually many of the buildings, like the shopping centers or in some of the commercial buildings, this type of zoning method is already being applied. But the new ideas or new technologies in HVAC industry is that we try to look at it into more details to provide individuals or self-contained system which can be used by individual users or tenants in the commercial buildings, so that they can isolate with the other users, so that they can have 24 hours control of the operations. And from the public health point of view, this may also help in controlling the transmission of virus and other diseases in the large buildings by not allowing the air to flow around the buildings from one place to the others. And this is one of the trends that have been considered and applied in some other countries.
好，唔該晒許博士嘅作答嘅，繼續啦，都仲有啦。線上嘅朋友就話啦，其實以你而家所知道啦，其實有冇一啲係更加環保嘅科技，可能有機會可以取代到而家現有嘅暖通空調系統呢？
我相信呢個係非常之有趣嘅問題啦，即係我哋都好期待會唔會有啲更加優勝嘅科技，或者更加係有效嘅科技可以製造到嗰個空調嘅效果，但係又唔需要用好多嘅能源或者電力嘅。咁其實而家亦都有好多嘅研究喺大學嗰度，喺其他唔同嘅國家地區做緊，但係而家未去到一個成熟嘅階段咯嗰啲。所以咧，我諗喺短期到中期嚟講咧，我相信香港又好或者其他國家地又好咧，都仍然會係用翻一啲相對比較傳統嘅 HVAC 嘅科技嚟嘅。我哋唔可以將呢啲HVAC 科技完全掉晒佢，因為我哋仲未有一種取代嘅科技可以完全可以適合喺唔同嘅用途嗰度。
明白，好，時間關係啦，咁可能咧，我哋問得最後一條啊，許博士。Well, due to time constraints, so maybe a last question for Dr. Sam Hui. The audience would like to know, is opening communication protocol or API a future trend?
Oh, yes, there is another term called interoperability in our HVAC control industry, which means that we try to have a common protocol or standards that all the equipment and devices in the HVAC industry can connect it and then share the information. It's very important for us to have a sharing of the information in order to optimize the performance of the control. So therefore, I believe that this type of open systems or interoperability will be resolved in the coming futures in our HVAC industries.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Hui. It seems like we've covered all the questions so far. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Hui, for the fantastic section. Thank you.